FBI Director Dan Bongino took the day off after clashing with Pam Bondi at the White House over the Epstein Files. The alleged fight erupted over a 10-hour video that was released with a minute missing. Some insiders believe Bongino quit, however, administration officials say he's still on the job. Two sources familiar with Bongino's position say he was increasingly displeased with Bondi's handling of the Epstein case because she had publicly overpromised and underdelivered disclosures about an Epstein client list that apparently never existed. Pam said her piece, Dan said his piece. It didn't end on friendly terms, said one person, according to the outlet. And I remember when, like, Pam Bondi originally was talking about this, I was like, I feel like it's kind of dumb of her to give the FBI the benefit of the doubt and give them such a wide berth to deliver the files to her. That seems a little strange to me. Like, she should just go in there with her people and be like, we're putting a freeze on everything right now until we collect the information. I feel like that's kind of what should have happened. And then when they did that weird stunt with all of those influencers who went and got binders and then posed for pictures, I was like, this also looks kind of fucking bad. I criticized that entire stunt as well. And there was even like one blonde woman in particular that was like especially weird in the whole thing. I don't remember everything about it exactly, but I know I covered it and it was turned into a video as well. So let's see what this is on Timcast. Let's see what this video is, because I haven't watched it either.
I get a call, I don't know, about 4 years ago. It's from, let's say, a friend. Prior line of work thing, right?
Right.
Guy says, listen, and
I'm
this
gonna
guy
take a bite of a
is an
shimmin' bun.
unimpeachable source. This guy's not like some ham and egg or tomato can guy throwing out some theory.
He's not a what? Can he say that on Timcast?
About a UFO he saw 72 years ago, whatever. This is like a legit no-nonsense guy. Guy you trust with your, wife, kid, and car, right? He says, I got sent on a temporary assignment once. And on that assignment, I got sent out with on the WCD detail, William Clinton detail. And I knew this guy well. And he says, Dan, I got to share this with someone. He said, I go on a plane, and Bill, Clinton gets on the plane with this guy, and it turns out later the guy's Epstein. Now, this guy I'm talking to, this source, he don't know who Jeffrey Epstein is. He's just getting on the plane doing the thing, the whole, protection gig, right? He says, I get on the plane, and there are these girls who are obviously not of age who are on this plane. They're clearly young. These are not women. These are girls. And he says, I see Clinton, disappear into the back he goes, I don't know what happened. I'm not saying what happened, because all I know is he disappeared, and these girls were back there or whatever. And he said they land at the next stop, wherever it was. And he goes up to the boss on the detail, and he says, I ain't getting back on this plane. Because he's a temp. He's not used to whatever Clinton was up to with the whole shenanigans thing.
Well, I feel like you shouldn't have to get used to what Clinton's up to, right? I mean, if you're on security detail and you see a powerful person doing questionable things that you feel morally reprehensible about, you have to make that hard decision where it's like, do I say these things out loud and get murdered? Or do I keep it to myself and keep my family safe? Because even Kevin Spacey isn't even someone who's large and powerful, and haven't 3 or 4 of Kevin Spacey's accusers just mysteriously died after accusing him? It's a genuine thing to have to worry about in the world, unfortunately.
And this guy's clear as the driven snowman. He don't want to mess around with this. He says, whatever just happened back there, I don't want any piece of it. They sent him home. They sent that guy home, and he was never tempted to that detail again. Now, remember, all those Blackberries on that detail. Here's where the story gets.
Blackberries like the phone, or is this some sort of lingo that I don't understand? Those, the alphabet boys need to have blackmail on you if you want to have any power conspiracy theories looking real plausible right now. No list, because there doesn't need to be when you have a whole database full enough blackmail to start a civil war. Yeah, like the phone. Okay.
Super weird. The guy tells me, months or a couple weeks later, when you lose property in the Secret Service, an email goes out. It'll say hey, I lost his phone, and it gets logged into NCIC or whatever it is, and everybody knows. So basically, if you find this guy's gun, God forbid, or his phone, it's now effectively stolen property, right?
Yeah.
All of a sudden, all the Blackberries on that detail for the agents start showing up like, oh, this guy lost his BlackBerry. Holy shit. Wow, that's so crazy. How'd that happen? I'm like, no. He says, yes. He says it was the craziest thing. Like, oh, look, Agent Joey Bag of Donuts. Missing BlackBerry, missing BlackBerry.
Agent Joey Bag of Donuts. I didn't know donut operator was former CIA security detail.
This is around the whole time, like the Clinton thing's going on. So fast forward this story, right? He tells me that. About a year and a half after that, I'm in a green room at Fox, and I'm not going to say who because they didn't give me permission to share it, but, well, the short story, but not who they are. Says, you know, Epstein's an intelligence asset for people in the Middle East, right? I'm like, no, I didn't know that.
I was about to say, what does he mean, people in the Middle East? And then I remembered, oh yeah, Israel is in the sand area. Because I was going to say, no, he was Mossad, but no, that is the Middle East. Continue, Mr. Baldman.
I'm like, you sure of that? The person, let's say, is like, I'm absolutely sure of that. That he's either a witting or unwitting asset, intelligence asset. Meaning, his plane and that island, the cameras, there's a big assumption out there that these videotapes were exclusively in the custody of Epstein. That's a huge mistake. The reason they wanted this story to go away is because there's an assumption like, oh yeah, Epstein had him. No, he wasn't the only one who had him, according to this source. These assets, that's why this blackmail story makes so much sense. Which Middle Eastern countries they are, I don't know. But this person, who's a very, very good reporter, I mean, aces, right? Swore Epstein was either a witting or unwitting intelligence asset. And
yeah, I've heard that he was like part of Mossad. I don't really think it's necessarily like it needs to be Mossad. Like he could have just been a CIA asset, right? I don't think it really matters which intelligent asset he was, just that he was one in general.
May have had his plane wired up, and they're the ones who have all this stuff. So the point is, to sum it up, how do you know some of these countries aren't going to some of these power players who aren't making decisions because, hey, you wouldn't want this video out there, right?
Right? And you can't see it very well because of my background, but up here, up in the top right, you can't see that. Up here, there's my mouse. Up here at the top right, this says 2023. So I guess this was a Timcast from 2023 where Bongino talked about this. And I guess it just, lost in people's minds. Now, this was another thing that was added here. FBI Director Kirsche and Dan Bongino are livid with Pam Bondi over her DOJ memo and the lack of transparency from her office regarding the Jeffrey Epstein files. Source tells me Dan Bongino is taking the day off from his job as Deputy Director of the FBI, and now there's speculation on whether or not he will return to the FBI over his disgust with Bondi's lack of transparency and handling of the Epstein files. Pam Bondi has brought total embarrassment to President Trump, Vance, Bongino, and Kirsche. She has also lied to the American people. Trump has said some crazy fucking shit as well. Like, I don't know what the fuck is going on. I have no idea why everyone has suddenly done a 180 from, hey, look at all of this press release we're going to do around the Epstein files. We're going to release everything. We're going to be transparent to, what files? Nothing exists. There was nothing there. Why is anyone still talking about this? If you're still talking about this, you must have an ulterior agenda. There's no reason to keep worrying about the Epstein files. They don't exist. They're not real. That's actually a Democrat operative scam, Like, they made it up. It's not real. What the fuck? You can't pull that after how many years of this has been going on? You think the files contain a lot of foreign leaders and it would cause the USA a lot of diplomatic issues? I mean, I can agree with you there. I don't even think it's necessarily the foreign leaders, but how many of our own politicians are also going to be implemented in it? You want to know who threatened these people? Exactly. Right? Like, I want to know what the fuck is going on, because for people to just completely 180 like that is just in-fucking-sane. I'm told Kirsche and Bongino are furious with Bondi and the blowback she has caused them with her lack of transparency. Kash Patel and Dan Bongino should call for Bondi's public resignation today to save themselves and also push for full transparency into the Epstein files. This is an issue the American people care deeply about. Someone needs to be fired for this. Giving Bondi courtesy to resign is more than she deserves. Trump should just fire her. And I would have agreed until Trump also came out and started saying really fucking weird shit. Really, really fucking strange shit. There is an article here that says, Metadata shows the FBI's raw Jeffrey Epstein prison video was likely modified. Wow. Who is shocked That the video that we were told doesn't exist because the cameras suddenly happened to mysteriously malfunction just when this man definitely, totally, 100% killed himself. And now we have the full footage with... they didn't malfunction at all! It's like, how... Was COVID like a test bed for how much they could lie to people and it actually be believed? Like, I just genuinely don't understand what's happening. The United States Department of Justice this week released nearly 11 hours of what is described as quote-unquote full raw surveillance footage from a camera positioned near Jeffrey Epstein's prison cell the night before he was found dead. The release was intended to address conspiracy theories about Epstein's apparent suicide in federal custody. But instead of putting those suspicions to rest, it may fuel them further. What did McAfee have on his dead man's switch? See, now I'm remembering how McAfee said that he's not suicidal. And I think he even got like a tattoo or some shit about it, right? And he was like terrified. He was terrified. And he was like, I have a dead man switch set to go off if anything were to happen to me. And then he also mysteriously killed himself and then nothing happened. So I'm wondering, what's going on with that? Metadata embedded in the video and analyzed by Wired, an independent video forensics expert, shows that rather than being a direct export from the prison surveillance system, the footage was modified, likely using the professional editing tool Adobe Premiere Pro. The file appears to have been assembled from at least 2 source clips, saved multiple times, exported, and then uploaded to the DOJ's website, where it was presented as raw footage. You know, that's kind of weird that someone who's, like, supposedly working on this footage would, like, just forget about metadata. That seems, like, a little weird that they would just forget about that. Experts caution that it's unclear what exactly was changed and that the metadata does not prove deceptive manipulation. The video may have simply been processed for public release using available software, with no modifications beyond stitching together 2 clips. But the absence of a clear explanation for the processing of the file using professional editing software complicates the Justice Department's narrative. In a case already clouded by suspicion, the ambiguity surrounding how the file was processed is likely to provide fresh fodder for conspiracy theories. Any aspect of the official story that isn't fully explained will be co-opted by conspiracy theorists, said Mike Rothschild, an author who writes about conspiracy theories and extremists. So whatever your flavor of Epstein conspiracy is, the video will help bolster it. Really? Really? We're calling a guy named Mike Rothschild just an author who writes about conspiracy theories? Is that where we're at now? Are you kidding? For months leading up to the joint memo the DOJ and FBI published Monday, Attorney General Pam Bondi had promised the release of records related to Epstein, raising expectations that new, potentially incriminating details might surface about the disgraced financier's death and his ties to powerful individuals. However, rather than revealing new information, the memo largely confirmed conclusions reached years earlier. That Epstein was found in a Manhattan prison cell on August 10, 2019, and died by suicide while awaiting trial on sex trafficking charges. There is not a single human being alive. Not a single one. There is not a mentally incompetent 45 IQ individual held in an institution that believes Epstein killed himself. To support its conclusion, the FBI reviewed surveillance footage overlooking the common area of the special housing unit at the Metropolitan Correctional Center, where Epstein was held. The FBI enhanced the footage by adjusting contrast, color, and sharpness, and released both the enhanced and what it described as the raw version. Both versions of the video appear to have been processed using Premiere and include much of the same metadata. According to the FBI, anyone entering the area containing Epstein's cell during the relevant time frame would have been visible on that camera. Embedded metadata from the raw Epstein prison footage, and this is just the metadata here, file size, EXIF final version, MIME type, all of that. Not there's 12 pages of the data here. Working with 2 independent video forensics experts, Wired examined the 21-gigabyte files released by the DOJ. Using a metadata tool, reporters analyzed both exchangeable image file format, EXIF, and extensible metadata platform, XMP, data to identify signs of post-processing. The raw file shows clear signs of having been processed using Adobe product, most likely Premiere, based on the metadata that specifically references file extensions used by the video editing software. According to experts, Adobe software includes Premiere and Photoshop, leaves traces in exported files, often embedding metadata that logs which assets were used and what actions were taken during editing. In this case, the metadata indicates the file was saved at least 4 times over a 23-minute span on May 23rd by a Windows user account called MJ Cole, a little squiggle 1. The metadata does not show whether the footage was modified before each time it was saved. My brain couldn't remember what the little squiggle is called. The embedded data suggests the video is not a continuous, unaltered export from the surveillance system, but a composite assembled from at least 2 separate MP4 files. The metadata includes references to Premiere project files and 2 specific source clips. 2025 522 21 12 48 and 2025 522 16 35 21. These entries appear under a metadata section labeled Ingredients, part of Adobe's internal schema for tracking source material used in edited exports. The metadata does not make clear where in the video the 2 clips were spliced together. Hani Farid, a professor at UC Berkeley whose research focuses on digital forensics and misinformation, reviewed the metadata at Wired's request. Farid is a recognized expert in the analysis of digital images and the destruction of manipulated media, including deepfakes. He has testified in numerous court cases involving digital evidence. Farid says metadata raises immediate concerns about chain of custody, the documented handling of digital evidence from collection to presentation in a courtroom. Just like physical evidence, he explains, digital evidence must be handled in a way that preserves its integrity. Metadata, while not always precise, can provide important clues about whether that integrity has been compromised. If a lawyer brought me this file and asked if it was suitable for court, I'd say no. Go back to the source, do it right, Farid said. Do a direct export from the original system, no monkey business. Farid points to another anomaly. The video's aspect ratio shifts noticeably at several points. Why am I suddenly seeing a different aspect ratio, he asks. Farid cautions that while the metadata clearly shows the video was modified, the changes could be benign. For example, converting footage from a proprietary surveillance format to a standard MP4. While there may be uncontroversial explanations for the metadata artifacts, such as stitching together multiple days of footage during compilation, or the routine export of surveillance footage to an MP4 format, the FBI did not respond to specific questions about the file's processing, instead referring Wired to the DOJ. The DOJ, in turn, referred inquiries back to the FBI and the Bureau of Prisons. The Bureau of Prisons also did not respond to a request for comment. Wow, I'm so shocked. This is so shocking. According to a 2023 report from the DOJ Office of the Inspector General, MCC, the detention facility where Epstein was found hanged had around 150 analog surveillance cameras. But starting on July 29, 2019, a technical error prevented roughly half of them from recording, including most inside the SHU. The system was scheduled for repairs on August 9th, the night before Epstein was found dead. But the technician assigned to fix it couldn't access the necessary equipment because the corrections officer required to escort him was nearing the end of their shift. Wow, so many coinky-dinkses. Wow, that just works out real fucking nice, don't it? Man. Man, that's crazy. As a result, only 2 cameras were operational near SHU at the time MCC staff found Epstein hanging in his cell, one covering the common area and stairwells near the entrance to the adjacent 10 South unit, and another monitoring a 9th floor elevator bay. Neither captured Epstein's cell door. According to the DOJ's memo, the footage confirms that from the time Epstein was locked in his cell at approximately 8 p.m. on August 9th, 2019, and between 10:40 p.m. and 6:30 a.m. the next morning, no one entered the tier where his cell was located. However, recording indicates a notable gap. Approximately 1 minute of footage is missing, from 11:58 p.m. to 12 a.m. exactly. The video resumes immediately afterwards. That's interesting. Right, I didn't remember the date that he died, but up here, didn't they say? The metadata includes references to Premiere project files and 2 specific source clips. So why do the source clips have date 5/22/2025? Right, because like this would be the date of them being stitched together, not the source clip date, right? The source clip date should be the August date, should it not? Am I like misinterpreting things here? I'm not a video editor, so. The OIG's report found no evidence of a conspiracy to kill Epstein. Instead, it documented years of chronic staffing failures and system breakdowns at MCC. The facility was temporarily closed in 2021 after the DOJ essentially deemed conditions unfit for incarceration. You see, wouldn't this be weird in and of itself? If you have arrested and incarcerated a guy known for running an island that politicians and Hollywood people and just elite powerful people from all over the world visit for nefarious things, why would you purposefully put this incredibly, like, valuable prisoner asset in a place that was, like, horribly run to the point where it was deemed unfit for incarceration? Like, that doesn't make sense, man. At a press conference on Tuesday, Bondi attributed the missing minute to a flaw in the surveillance system's daily cycle, claiming that 1 minute is missing from every night's recording. Isn't that bad? Like, if people knew that there is like a minute or two of missing footage from every night's surveillance, couldn't they take advantage of that? Like, please. Given the years of high-profile conspiracy theories surrounding Epstein, any perceived inconsistency in the official narrative is likely to draw intense scrutiny. Conspiracy theorist Alex Jones called the DOJ memo sickening. Next, the DOJ will say, actually, Jeffrey Epstein never even existed, he wrote in a post on X, you know? When they're saying, like, the files don't exist. That is an interesting, funny thing to say. In the world of conspiracy theories, evidence that disproves something happened becomes proof that something happened, says Rothschild. He explains that the case of Epstein's death is a good example of this phenomenon. Every piece of evidence that points to him taking his own life, the negligence of the prison staff, the disrepair of the cameras, the coroner's report, is turned into evidence that he was killed by powerful figures who weren't competent enough to cover up the crime correctly. They just openly gloat in your face, man. The apparent gaps in the video, Rothschild said, will naturally inflame these suspicions. One media forensics expert who reviewed the metadata and agreed with Wired's analysis but requested anonymity due to privacy concerns and a desire to avoid having their name publicly associated with anything related to the Epstein case. This person's like, yeah, I totally don't believe the conspiracy theorist, but also don't put my name out there just in case I do wake up with 2 bullet holes to the back of my head. Just in case. Put it bluntly, it looks suspicious, but not as suspicious as the DOJ refusing to answer back questions about it. So, today, or yesterday, I guess, it's from yesterday, last night, Colin Rugg again said, Matt Walsh sends a message to the Trump administration over the Epstein case. We want these people to be dragged in front of us, weeping and begging for mercy. Millions of Americans are not satisfied with what we've been told, and we shouldn't be. I want to make this very clear to those on the right, including the president himself, who are telling us to just drop the subject and move on. We can't drop it. We can't move on. Because what we want is justice. We have a deep desire for justice, and we can see how the corrupt and the powerful are never held accountable. I'm going to stop reading there and just let him talk, because this looks like
we have no idea
quotes from the video, but I don't know if it's the full video or not. So I'm just gonna let him talk, because I agree with what he said so far.
Yeah, what information, if any, this sociopath, this evil woman will ultimately reveal. But the fact remains that, especially after the humiliating display by Bondi and the DOJ we've all just witnessed, it's probably worth listening to Maxwell's testimony. If a client list exists at this point, she's the most likely person to tell us. Now, yes, it's an indictment of Pam Bondi and the DOJ that we see any reason to listen to a ghoul like this, but that's where we are. Millions of Americans are not satisfied with what we've been told. And we shouldn't be, because it's been contradictory and insulting to our intelligence every step of the way.
True.
So now we're looking elsewhere.
True and
this
real.
This is what happens when people are deceived and strung along for years, only to be told that they're not entitled to any kind of transparency whatsoever. People are not just going to move on with their lives, no matter how badly you want them to. And there's a reason for that. And I want to make this very clear to those on the right, including the president himself, who are telling us to just drop the subject and move on.
I don't know who on the right is saying to drop the subject and move on. Like I've seen the weird shit Trump is saying, but I haven't seen like other people. I'm sure they are. I just haven't seen them yet. But it's like I don't understand how you could come to that. But it's like if people are saying that, That's fucking weird. Why would you tell everyone to stop focusing on a very powerful guy who supposedly killed himself, who was involved in collecting blackmail on powerful figures by trafficking underage women with them? Like, what? Why is that something you want everyone to fucking stop talking about? That is crazy. That is a crazy thing to say.
We can't drop it. We can't move on. Because what we want is justice. We have a deep desire for justice. And we can see how the corrupt and the powerful are never held accountable. What the hell is this spicy cat raid? We can look at our cities and see violent criminals running rampant in the streets, also not held accountable.
But if these powerful people do nothing but circularly protect each other, how would we ever get accountability? How would we ever hold these powerful people who are in charge of everything to account for the crimes that they have done?
We want these evildoers to be punished. We want the innocent to be defended. We want justice. It's one of the most basic and most honorable of all human desires. We want to see that justice is done. We want to know who else was in those awful videos that Pam Bondi told us about. And we want those people to be dragged in front of us, weeping and begging for mercy.
True.
We want them exposed and humiliated and shamed and punished in the harshest and most painful way.
Very true.
Because that's justice. And we're not going to drop the subject until we get it. So unseal everything, including the search warrants and the financial disclosures. Tell us what exactly was in those truckloads of documents that you recovered in New York. Show us the Phase 2 Epstein Files that you told us about just a few months ago. In other words, don't give us any more excuses from bureaucrats on Fox News. Don't give us any more stonewalling and doublespeak. We've seen more than enough of that in this case and so many others. Instead, for a change, give us something we're not used to seeing from the federal government and the DOJ. Give us justice.
That was a very poignant video. I can't disagree with anything he said. He's completely correct here. It's the beard of noticing. Matt Walsh is often incorrect about things, but right here, he is completely fucking correct. Walsh is great when he's not trolling weebs and gamers. They're all corrupt. They never will. I mean, I'm gonna trust my friends in the government. Well, I don't trust Charlie Kirk if he says that. What the fuck?
Honestly, I'm done talking about Epstein for the time being. I'm going to trust my friends in the administration. I'm going to trust my friends in the government to do what needs to be done, solve it, balls in their hands. I've said plenty this last weekend. So if you guys want to see my commentary on it, that's fine. Honestly.
Well, it's like, that's fine if he's already talked about it, right? But like the fact that he also says, I'm going to trust my friends in the government is a huge red flag for me. Because it's like, I can like some of the things that Trump does. I can like some of the things the administration puts into practice. But I'm not going to trust them. The last thing you want to do is trust the government. That's going to put you in a very bad position. I'm not a fan of the government and don't trust those sociopaths. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the government, by the way. This morning at 8:50 a.m., Tim Pool said, you can't just vote to release the Epstein Files because there are victims, videos, and photos in those files. The Khanna amendment would have forced the DOJ to publish everything. Khanna was asking the DOJ to publish videos of children being raped on a public website. This is a screenshot of the thing that was being proposed as part of the thing that the Republicans voted against. The Attorney General shall retain, preserve, and compile any records or evidence related to any investigation, prosecution, or incarceration of Jeffrey Epstein. Not later than 30 days after the date of the enactment of this act, the Attorney General shall release and publish any records or evidence related to any investigation, prosecution, or incarceration of Jeffrey Epstein on a publicly accessible website. And I think as long as you can put like a sentence in there that's like, redacted information that includes like victims' imagery or whatever, so you don't release the photos or the fucking videos, that would be perfect, right? Like you just gotta put that in there in the legalese, right? Like this guy here said, this would be a very easy fix. There'd be a very easy fix to that problem if that is indeed the problem, with the exception of any materials that would violate existing laws on possession, production, or distribution of child pornography or CSAM. Like, just put that sentence in there, man. Put the sentence in there. Government forgot how to redact stuff. Yeah, just put that in there, man. If Trump was ever in the files, the Dems would have dumped that on day one to fry him. I still think that. So I don't think he specifically is implicated in the files, but he is not making me feel very good with the things he is saying. This afternoon, actually, today at 1:48 p.m., so just before my stream, President Trump doubles down and says the Epstein Files are just made up by Comey and Obama, and says Pam Bondi is handling it very well. I don't know what fucking planet he's living on right now, and I don't want to go like crazy conspiracy, someone fucking threatened him, but this is not making any fucking sense. This does not make sense to me. Hold on, I gotta turn up the volume. It's hella low. I hate volume.
The Attorney General briefed you on the DOJ and FBI review, the findings of that review. The Attorney General briefed you on that.
What? On the
DOJ and FBI
on what?
review.
On what subject?
Epstein.
Okay.
On Epstein, of the review of the files. Attorney General Pam Bondi.
A very quick briefing.
Did she tell you, what did she tell you about the review? And specifically, did she tell you at all that your name appeared in the file?
No, she's given us just a very quick briefing, and in terms of the credibility of the different things that they've seen. And I would say that, these files were made up by Comey, they were made up by Obama, they were made up by the Biden information,
Like, that doesn't even make sense. This is levels of, like, Steele dossier delusion. Like, the Steele dossier wasn't real. There was no pissing in Obama's hotel room in Russia. Like, what? What is this nonsense that I am hearing?
Through years of that, with the Russia hoax, with all of the different things that we had to go through, we've gone through years of it. But she's handled it very well, and it's going to be up to her. Whatever she thinks is credible, she should release. Yeah.
On Texas, how many more seats do you want the Republicans to?
I don't understand. Trump's advisors are hitting the sauce. I don't know. It's fucking weird. Do we put a rest to this once and for all? What did he mean by this? Yeah, if that client list doesn't come out, the entire Republican Party is doomed come next election cycle. Yeah. Can we at least get an explanation on how they figured out this is an alleged hoax from the Obama-Comey era? And Colin said, if it was actually an Obama and Comey hoax, that would be a pretty big story, and you'd think the administration would want to release more info on it, but they aren't. True. Also true. What about the Part 1 binders Pam sent to social media influencers away with? Colin said, seems like he is suggesting that someone tampered with the files. Man, what the fuck is going on? Obama-Biden had the files at one point. It's not crazy to think that they tampered with it. I mean, possibly, but also, like, everyone and their mother has had these files and they've just sat on them instead of releasing them. The Democrats didn't release them. The Republicans didn't release them. We just fucking want this shit released. There's a clip of House Speaker Mike Johnson breaking out with the president position and asking Pam Bondi to release the files.
Speaker Johnson, this is sort of on the heels of something else that a lot of people are asking questions about, and because we've been lied to by our federal government for so
I was like, why is there a super chat here? What's going on?
long, I feel like there's some type of like there's a pain point, right, in the pressure cooker that gets heated up on issues like the Epstein issue, right? And obviously that's something that's taken over a lot of the online dialogue. But a question here about it that concerns either testifying or testimony for Ghislaine Maxwell, potentially before Congress, or if you would support members like Marjorie Taylor Greene or Anna Paulina Luna on the release of subpoenaing the Epstein documents from the DOJ, whether you would support either of those.
Yeah, I haven't talked to Marjorie or Anna about that specific subject, but I'm for transparency. We're intellectually consistent in this. Look, Reagan used to tell us we should trust the American people. I believe in that principle. I know President Trump does as well, and I trust him. I mean, he put together a team of his choosing, and they're doing a great job. It's a very delicate subject, but we should put everything out there and let the people decide it. I mean, the White House and the White House team are privy to facts that I don't know. I mean, this isn't my lane. I haven't been involved in that. But I agree with the sentiment that we need to put it out there. And you know, Pam Bondi, I don't know when she originally made the statement, I think she was talking about documents, as I understood it, that were on her desk. I don't know that she was specific about a list or whatever, but she needs to come forward and explain that to everybody. I like Pam. I mean, I think she's done a good job. We need the DOJ focusing on the major priorities. So let's get this thing resolved so that they can deal with violent crime and public safety and election integrity and going after Act Blue and the things that the president is most concerned about, as we are. So I'm anxious to get this behind us.
I don't think it's going to get behind us until there's explanations. I don't think people are going to drop this until we actually have something tangible to look at that hasn't been tampered with. You know, some list or whatever. Let's fucking see what this video is. The worst cover-up of CoffeeZilla's lifetime.
This is the worst cover-up of my lifetime, the Epstein case.
I'm going to try and finish eating my cinnamon bun, too.
Is because if you can get away with this, you really can get away with anything.
True.
If the government can tell people to not believe what they just said a few months ago and have everyone be fine with that, that's just a level of gaslighting that I...
Aren't you feeling sleepy, chat? Oh, man. I'm so sleepy. I just don't feel like caring about this Epstein stuff anymore, chat. It's time for a nap.
Refuse to be a part of. Never forget, they just promised us names in the release of the Epstein Files.
Breaking news right now, you're going to see some Epstein information being released.
What kind?
A lot of flight logs, a lot of names, a lot of information.
We already had the flight logs.
But in this case, in Epstein's case, it is incredibly disturbing. We have flight logs, we have information, names that will come out.
Is it going to be shocking?
I don't see how it's not shocking that there were so many individuals that were hidden and kept secret.
Also, as someone who's had to be a public figure for several years now, if you have this kind of like damaging information that could destroy a lot of powerful people, why open your mouth and talk about it publicly like this instead of being like, we have no comment right now, and then actually just release everything like a giant fucking nuclear bomb, you know? Because like the more you talk about it, the more people can try and struggle session you into not releasing it. I feel like a little bit of foot and mouth, maybe, I don't know. Ego. I like, even if like as a politician you have to kind of address some of these things immediately, why do like an influencer photo op where you give out like binders of Epstein files? Like that was just gross to me.
And not been held accountable.
Yeah, well, apparently there are no names to be given.
It's not real.
No blackmail. Epstein has now been pushed as a lone trafficker. It's the lone trafficker theory, guys.
Yeah, Ghislaine Maxwell is in jail for absolutely no reason. She did nothing wrong.
Essentially, the government's memo that they just released contradicts everything we've seen before, and now basically implies that Epstein was trafficking to himself.
That's crazy. No incriminating client list, no credible evidence that Epstein blackmailed prominent individuals, evidence that could predicate an investigation against uncharged third parties. They are lying so fucking blatantly, it is crazy.
And Ghislaine Maxwell was trafficking to Epstein, and there was no other blackmail or trafficking going on. That's what this memo essentially implies. His wealth and his power then would be just from his skill as a New York financier.
I'm talking about Jeff Epstein, the New York financier.
Basically, he was...
Is that kind of like calling that Rothschild guy like a writer of conspiracy theories?
The world's greatest tax advisor by day and the world's greatest trafficker at night to himself and the rich and powerful people.
He's like the anti-Batman. Instead of fighting for truth and justice and putting criminals in jail, he fights for powerful men to have access to underage girls.
Who all flocked to him and to his island had no idea of this double life. No, they suck at lying so bad. It doesn't matter that they suck at lying, because anyone who can tell that they're lying is just going to be painted as a conspiracy theorist, and all of the normies are just going to be like, well, the government said it, so it must be true. Or on the flip side, they're going to be like, well, it was Trump's government who said it, so that means he's in the files. Like, either way, it's not like the normies are just going to start sleeping and forgetting about it.
That really is kind of the heart of the modern theory, is that just all Epstein
Just
by
trust
himself,
the government.
and then his...
Yeah, and that's why, like, I agreed earlier with some guy who said that, like, if the Republicans don't release the file, they're probably going to lose. I don't think it'll be the only reason they lose, but you know, the next presidential election, they are going to drill into the public consciousness the fact that the Republicans voted against releasing the Epstein Files, and they obviously voted against it for a reason. And they're not going to show you the text of the bill that would implicate releasing video files and pictures of abuse. They're just going to say that, and normies are going to be like, well, obviously I don't want to vote for people defending pedophiles.
Friends just were there for his tax advice, despite not being a tax professional or a lawyer. Not only that, another huge revelation is the fact that really the government has increased the number of victims and decreased the number of perpetrators, right?
They've increased the number of victims over the years, eh?
We had the idea that there were these other perpetrators for a while, that they were just redacted because the government was building cases. Now we got pretty clear statements that there isn't evidence to bring future cases on third parties. But if you look at the original...
Is this going to turn into a case of, like, if Jeffrey Epstein had a refractory period of 14 minutes, how many people could he have fucked in one day to only have been trafficking to himself with this many victims? Right? Like, what kind of weird math problems are we going to have to do here?
2019 indictment, it says dozens of victims. This is from Ken Klippenstein. But the Epstein review...
Ken Klippenstein would be a great fucking streamer name. Holy shit.
Tues says over 1,000 victims.
What?
So what happened, guys? And by the way, in the
True,
interim,
what happened?
they also increased the number to 200 to 250.
200 victims. 200. So we have well over 250, actually.
So we went from dozens to 200 to over 1,000 in the span of basically a year.
CoffeeZilla is not suicidal. He did not kill himself. I am now worried for this man because he's trying to mathematize something in history they're trying to cover up.
In terms of victims, we like 10x the number of victims, but now there's no perpetrators. Like the perpetrators have been reduced. That is the crazy thing about what they're implying here, what this lone trafficker theory is pushing forward. It's also strange because previously Epstein, in a court filing, is said to have provided information to the FBI as agreed upon. Case agent advised that no federal prosecution will occur in this matter as long as Epstein continues to uphold his agreement with the state of Florida.
So what agreement would that be if he wasn't giving up co-conspirators? Because otherwise they would have just thrown the book at him, right? Right?
Apparently there was some deal where Epstein was providing information to the FBI. What information? We don't know because no one else was involved. There's also
it wasn't real information. Don't think about it. Just go take a nap. Eat some Teddy Grahams.
Simple fact that if you go to the FBI records, what they call the vault, most of the files are just heavily redacted. So the idea...
Which was the huge problem with when they released the flight logs years ago. The flight logs were just heavily redacted and basically said fucking nothing.
That we got some transparency wave is literally a joke. Yes, it is true. There's no Epstein list where there's like names written down, but names exist in documents, on videos, in images, and they're all redacted. What's going on here? They're gonna say, oh, it's all for the victims, right? But it's not all victim names.
Correct.
In addition to that, this lone trafficker theory is already on shaky grounds when you think about...
Yeah, don't ask questions. Just consume press releases and binders. Look at these YouTubers holding binders. You guys like YouTubers, right? You'll believe the YouTubers, right? They cultivate a much higher trust with their audience than traditional celebrities. So if we take these pictures of YouTubers with binders of Epstein information, and then later on they agree with us saying, oh, there's no other information. Epstein was just doing shit with himself. You know, he had the world's highest refractory period. You'll see him in the Guinness Book of World Records recently. You gotta just believe the influencers.
Prince Andrew's settlement with Virginia Giuffre, where he paid $16 million to make civil sexual assault allegations go away. Now, of course, it's worth saying that he did not admit to guilt. This was a settlement, but that is what you're always going to have with these rich and powerful people. In the same way, you also have Leon Black, who reportedly paid $158 million over 5 years to Jeffrey Epstein for tax advice. And guess what? Leon Black, billionaire, also paid the U.S. Virgin Islands $62 million in cash as part of a settlement, a prosecution, where they wouldn't go after him for anything from, quote, any and all claims of any nature whatsoever, specifically related to Jeffrey Epstein.
You can do that? You can just buy off an entire island's government? You could go to an island and commit atrocious crimes and then be like, here, island government, have $62 million and never indict me on any crimes. That seems a little wild to me.
It's worth noting that $15 million of this cash payment will be going to counseling programs and activities or mental health services. You also have Jess Staley, the former boss of Barclays. He directly admitted to having sex with a member of Epstein's staff, which you would expect if someone was running a trafficking operation. Although, I just have
Weird that he called them staff, though. Why would you call them staff?
Say that there was a statement that this was entirely consensual, and I'm not saying anything about that. I'm simply saying the idea that Epstein was just trafficking for himself is unlikely to be true, in my opinion. Later, Staley wrote to Epstein, "Say hi to Snow White." Epstein replied, "What character would you like next?" Staley responded, "Beauty and the Beast." And then Jeffrey Epstein said, "Well, one side is available." Obvious.
I can't tell if Epstein was talking about an underage girl being available or an animal. Because I wouldn't put it past Epstein to dabble in a bit of zoophilia as well, based on everything we know.
Some type of coded message. You can read into that for yourself. But all of this is public. That's what I'm trying to say. That's what makes the government's memo.
Yeah, but you're not supposed to believe your lying eyes and ears, Mr. Coffee Man. What you see isn't real, you bigot. Shut up. Take a nap.
So infuriating is so much reporting has already been done. These settlements with powerful figures under denials, yes, but also under very questionable circumstances, make just a complete denial and statement that all of this was just Epstein impossible to believe.
Yeah, all of this was just the conspiracy theorists making up shit. He was merely just trafficking minors to himself. Don't worry about it.
In September 2009, Epstein also emailed a woman named Irina to tell her that Jess Staley is staying in the Berkeley Hotel in London tonight. Staley emailed Epstein the next day to say, "I should have taken your offer," according to the Times. There's also this book by one of the 60 Minutes correspondents called
Oh, he put a correction here. Hold on.
According to the Times. There's also this book by one of the 60 Minutes.
Ira Rosen is a producer and writer of 60 Minutes, not a correspondent.
And its correspondence called A Ticking Clock, where he says that he met with Ghislaine Maxwell, and he said,
I've always pronounced her name Ghislaine, but I like how he says Ghislaine, because it just, like, in your mind associates her with, like, the grotesque trafficking that she did.
"I want the tapes," I said to Maxwell at a table at Regency Bar. "I know he was videotaping everyone. I want the tape of Trump with the girls." She didn't deny the existence of the tapes, but said, "I don't know where they are." He apparently replied, "Ask Epstein," and she gave him a stern look and pointed a finger at my face. "I'm the daughter of a press baron. I know the way you people think. If you do one side, you must do the other. If you get tapes on Trump, you have to do Clinton."
Interesting if Maxwell said that. Interesting if he's actually in the files. Interesting. That would be very grotesque. And if the files are released and he would be in them, I would actually unironically want him impeached at that point. Like, I don't care what other good he has done. Like, fucking no, bro. No, dude.
Now, again, what you make of a third-hand source like this talking to Ghislaine Maxwell, who apparently doesn't deny that some of these tapes exist, was she even telling the truth or just playing some game? Either way, this was all known about, not just by people after the fact, but allegedly by people during the fact. This is from Mark Epstein. It's sourced from Jeffrey Epstein. Quote, "If I said what I know about both candidates, they'd have to cancel the election." That's what Jeffrey told me in 2016. Oh. So not even Jeffrey Epstein or Ghislaine Maxwell allegedly were claiming this was all just between them. They were constantly insinuating that there were compromising things on various powerful people. What's funny is
impeach, try firing squad. Well, that would be after. You got to impeach first.
That Trump himself, even before he was in a position to declassify this stuff, had accused other powerful people of doing these things.
Bill Clinton.
Nice guy. Got a lot of problems coming up, in my opinion, with the famous island with Jeffrey Epstein.
That island was really a cesspool. There's no question about it. Just ask Prince Andrew.
You also have the fact that...
Is it the holy wood chipper is impartial, true, and real? It is. You voted for him specifically for his immigration policies, and you've been very happy with the results, but if he's on that list, he needs to go. Yeah. I mean, I voted for him for financial policy as well as for the social policy in regards to quite a lot of things. But if he's on the list, he's got to go, man. If you're on that list, you are a demon, man.
Jeffrey Epstein was in touch with other convicted files. Larry Nassar, he was writing letters. So the idea, once again, that he was just by himself, off by himself, doing things on his island by himself, and then taking calls with people like Bill Gates simply for philanthropic advice, really pushes the bounds of belief. Don't forget, a close associate of Bill Gates was named a fallback executor on the will of Jeffrey Epstein.
Weird.
Which he, by the way, said he was shocked
Very
by.
weird.
And he deeply regrets meeting Epstein. Bill Gates has said similar things to that effect. Of course, Bill Gates fraternized with Epstein after he was convicted of crimes. Previously, he told the Wall Street Journal, I didn't have any business relationship or friendship with him. But in fact, he met multiple times with him at his Manhattan townhouse. Now, once again, I have to say real quick, all of these people are innocent until proven guilty. All of them deny doing anything untoward. But
Bunker
my point
Cat
is,
looked like he was going to jump on me, and I didn't want to get clawed. There's not enough room for her to jump here.
Trafficker theory make any sense. For example, Jean-Luc Brunel was somebody who apparently trafficked a bunch of people to Epstein, who himself abused a bunch of women and even was charged for it.
Yeah, but don't think about it. Epstein didn't traffic anyone to anyone else but himself. Just don't think about the people he associated with. Just don't think about the people who would go to his island and pay him money. Don't think about it.
He was charged for some really awful things and then later found dead in his cell. Interestingly, Epstein was...
And this isn't even like a guilt by association thing. This is just like, you can't tell me that Epstein wasn't trafficking when he's involved with so many other traffickers and there's so many other people who were like, yeah, that's exactly what was happening, man. Like, I was there. I saw it with my own eyes. And they're just like, nah, your eyes lie. Listen to us. We tell you what to think.
Actually a financier of Brunel's modeling agency where a lot of this alleged abuse happened. So once again, the idea of the lone trafficker just doesn't make sense because Epstein's directly linked to another guy who was also abusing women.
Allegedly, according to The Guardian. This is a nice after frame when he had to put the asterisk allegedly in there.
So after all of this, they're really asking you to believe the unbelievable. They're asking you to not believe what they've said about this case, both out of office and now in power. They're asking you to not believe public reporting linking Epstein to other known files. They're asking you not to believe...
Can you not say pedophile on YouTube? Is that like a no-no word? Why would that be a no-no word? I don't understand. You love how this debacle just imploded everything about everything? Yeah, pretty much.
Suspicious circumstances regarding settlements of powerful people. They're asking you to believe that Epstein was just the greatest tax advisor and financial advisor on the planet that all of these billionaires needed to consult, despite the fact that there are entire organizations built around providing the same services as this without the, links to crimes. They're asking you to believe that when people are talking about Snow White and Beauty and the Beast, they're referencing Disneyland. And
obviously they're not referencing Disneyland. Who the fuck would believe that?
Especially asking you to believe that they have found 900 new victims since reviewing these files and exactly 0 new perpetrators. So
damn, Epstein had the fucking tiniest refraction period.
I'm just not buying it personally. I find it insulting to the intelligence of every single person who's ever looked at this story. And yeah, it really makes me feel like this was a appropriate time to launch a Crime is Legal merch collection, to be honest.
Crime is
it's probably
legal.
my last video on this for a while, but just disgusting.
Yeah, can't say anything, but I completely agree with everything this man said. Like, it's gotten really crazy. I think the only thing I would deviate on is, like, they get away with so much lying, and especially with like how much we've looked into, and this doesn't have to do with pedophiles, but like with how much we've looked into Bridge and how like a simple changing of the language makes everyone go, oh, you see? They stopped. They're doing something different now. It's all gonna be okay. We're winning. Right? Like, it's so easy to lie to people. So it's like, I don't even think that this kind of lying is an insult to the intelligence of people. It's just like, this is what people will just believe now. Not everyone, mind you, but enough people that they can call the ones who are still being like, excuse me, I want those Jeffrey Epstein files. They can just call you a conspiracy theorist. Good fucking lord, he's essaying. Yeah, right? Yeah, right? What else are we supposed to do but try and vote our way out of this? I'm not legally able to say.
Wrote the Epstein Files. This is just after Elon Musk, who worked with Trump for many months, said that Donald Trump is in the Epstein Files. That's the real reason they have not been made public.
If true, fucking get him out of there.
Obviously, we've already seen deflections from the president about Epstein, saying that it's a disgrace to talk about him.
Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? It just seems like a desecration.
But today, it goes a step further. Quick context. There's been a lot of infighting in the Republican Party over...
That seems like a really fucking weird thing to say. Buddy, we would stop talking about it if we got the fucking names.
Basically, who's at fault for the giant botch of the Epstein Files, with the majority of Republicans not wanting to believe that Trump himself was against a full release, but rather that he was sort of tricked into not releasing the Epstein Files by one of his lackeys. But today, Donald Trump came out and basically backed Pam Bondi, saying they're all going after Pam Bondi, who's doing a fantastic job.
Sorry, the cinnamon roll started falling apart as I tried to take a bite of it, so it was like, get cinnamon bun and frosting all over myself or try to eat too big of a bite. I'm sorry.
All over a guy who never dies, Jeffrey Epstein. For years, it's Epstein over and over again. Why are we giving publicity to files written by Democrats who con the world with the Russia hoax?
Once again, trying to claim that, like, everything about Epstein is some sort of weird Democratic hoax is just as crazy as all the Democrats who believed the, like, Steele dossier bullshit. Like, there's zero chance anyone sane is believing this, man. Like, the dumb people will, for sure. But, like, come on, dude. And also, yeah, it is Epstein over and over again for years, because we haven't gotten the files for years, and we should get those. Because if we're being ruled over in the government or in other countries who have like different forms of government or whatnot, if we're being ruled over by people who are just devout pedophiles trafficking minors, I feel like we have a right to know about that. I feel like we should know. Why protect the big boys club, man?
They created the Epstein Files just like they created the fake Hillary Clinton Steele dossier. Now this is such a smokescreen and a deflection. This is not a left versus right issue. Epstein never has been. It's the people versus the predators, not left versus right. The people versus the pedophiles, the people versus the people on planes. There ain't no left versus right here. In fact,
I don't like them goddamn people on planes.
Some of the people who want this the most are people on the right, even on Truth Social. Obviously a hugely Trump-favored place. Everybody is saying, no, this is unacceptable. You have to release the files. Later in the post, Trump also says that these are radical left-inspired documents and to not waste time and energy on Jeffrey Epstein, somebody that nobody cares about.
No, we all care about him. Because whatever's in those files, whoever is named is going to very much change a lot of things.
But actually, we all do care about it. You know who doesn't actually want this out? The elites. That's why they've never done it. That's why it was a compelling pitch when Donald Trump hinted to his base that maybe he was going to release the files. People largely didn't trust the job that Biden had done. That's why it was a compelling story. So the idea now that it was Biden and Obama who invented the Epstein Files is absolutely preposterous. They don't want that out either. And maybe that's because, as a producer of 60 Minutes alleged, Ghislaine Maxwell implied that there were tapes on Trump and also tapes on Clinton. You know who else said it? Mark Epstein, Jeffrey Epstein's brother, saying...
Which was in the video we just watched, which again, if they're both in the files, Fucking get them both out. The wood chipper does not discriminate between red and blue, man.
Epstein said, what I know about both candidates, the 2016 election would have to be canceled. So this whole idea that this is a
another
left
dinosaur.
or right
Where's
thing,
my real
it's not.
pterodactyl?
It's the elites. Anybody who was on that plane, anybody who was associated with Epstein, seen with Epstein, even if they did nothing wrong, they don't want that out. Everyone who wasn't seen with Epstein, wasn't on that plane, of course, they all want the files out.
Yes.
And what's interesting is obviously the Trump administration has sort of played footsie with this idea for a long time, playing.
This was still so infuriating. I hated this fucking photo op.
To their base. They know this is a big issue. They had the influencers stand out there with a bunch of released material, but we also showed clips of Trump implying that maybe Bill Clinton and Prince Andrew were doing bad things on the island.
Bill Clinton. Got a lot of problems coming up, in my opinion, with the famous island. That island was really a cesspool. There's no question about it. Just ask Prince Andrew.
So consistently, Trump has hinted that maybe these guys were involved with Epstein. Maybe it was bad. But turns out all these guys knew each other and knew Epstein. We know this in part from a Piers Morgan interview where he talks to a lady who went to a dinner party with Trump, Clinton, Epstein, and Prince Andrew.
Extraordinary collection of very high-power people. How did they all interact with Epstein? How did Trump, Clinton...
What island? There's no island. Look at Google Maps. They'll probably get rid of it soon, you know? It's like, what island?
Andrew interact with him?
Everyone was very, very pally with him, you know. It was like there was close bonds, you could see that.
So these guys knew each other, apparently had dinner parties together, all of them together. Trump later accuses two of the guys of doing bad things, and then when we release the files, can we release the files? Well, no, actually, no, we can't do that. Nobody cares about that.
Yeah, no one cares about those files anymore.
Epstein knew Prince Andrew, yes. He knew Bill Clinton, yes. But he also knew Donald Trump. And recently, tapes were released of Epstein talking and calling Donald Trump his closest friend.
Oh. So how do you know this?
So it makes intuitive sense to distance yourself from files that may or may not have your name in it, and even distance yourself from the people involved. It's worth.
I wonder what the point would have been, right? Like, I know they were friends before he removed Epstein from his properties for bringing underage girls to Mar-a-Lago. But, like, I wonder what the point of that would have been if he was actually, like, implicated in things.
Stating Trump actually denied knowing Prince Andrew.
I don't know Prince Andrew.
Of course, this was immediately debunked by photos showing the two together.
What a creepy smile.
And, of course, showing that they clearly knew each other as of 2000. Now, the reason you would deny knowing Prince Andrew, even though you did, is obvious. At the time, he was facing allegations related to Epstein. By the way, allegations...
It makes more sense to, instead of, like, lie and be like, yeah, I don't know the guy. It makes more sense to be like, yeah, I did know the guy, but I stopped associating with him. Like, right? Like, that's, like, way more believable, right? Anyone can have a photo with some dude. Trump is a celebrity and has been since the 80s. Yeah, no, I agree. But he didn't do himself any service by being like, yeah, I don't know the guy. Right? It would have made much more sense to be like, yeah, I met him a few times, but I don't associate with him, right? Put some, like, firm language in there.
That now are basically over.
Correct answer. I think we met, but I've met a lot of people. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Given the, like, yeah, you know, I take pictures with lots of people. It's very possible, like, I've met him, I've taken pictures with him, but I don't associate with him. Or maybe if they did, right? Maybe if they did somewhat know each other, just be like, yeah, I used to, but I don't associate with him anymore. Right? Like, just trying to throw under the rug that you didn't know them at all, I guess, is just a really strange thing to do. Potentially, if he only met the guy, like, twice in passing, he could have forgotten. I'm sure there's people that I've met that I've forgotten, but I don't know. I don't know how good his memory is, you know?
Andrew's very happy about us dropping the Epstein probe. A source for The Sun said he's only been abroad once since the scandal erupted. Prince Andrew has always been very nervous about going abroad and always looking over his shoulder, as he should be, in my opinion. But now he's very happy because the guy who never met him but was photographed with him in 2000 just ended the investigation. Now, I have to say, Trump's been pretty consistent on the fact he has no interest in releasing the Epstein files in full. He said this multiple times. The reason most people have sort of a false memory of this, the reason it's sort of a Mandela effect that he campaigned on the idea of releasing the Epstein files, is because Fox News released a deceptively edited clip where they cut out the part where he said, yeah, I'll probably release the Epstein files. And they cut out the part where then he backtracks on that completely.
Would you declassify the Epstein files?
Yeah, I would.
And that's the part most of us saw. Of course, later, people found out that the full clip showed him saying basically the opposite.
Yes, I would. I think that less so because, you don't know. You don't want to affect people's lives if it's phony stuff in there because there's a lot of phony stuff with that whole world.
We also have Bill O'Reilly on News Nation saying he just talked to Trump back on St. Patrick's Day, and Trump basically said the same thing.
He said, and I agree, there are a lot of names associated with Epstein that had nothing to do with Epstein's conduct. They maybe had lunch with him or maybe had some correspondence for one thing or another. If that name gets out, those people are destroyed. Because
they're worried about, like, the people who have met with Epstein, like, once or twice. Okay, if we're gonna work off of that logic, right? If people are worried that, like, oh, I had dinner with him once because I was a celebrity and he is a celebrity, or like I met him at like a gala or some shit, and Trump is looking in like, it doesn't matter that I banned him from my properties, people keep saying I'm implicated in terrible crimes anyway, so I understand all of these people's fears of being associated with him once in one place and never again. That could make sense. I don't think it's a reason to block the files from being released, but I also don't think that room temp IQ people would actually make the differentiation between those who merely met with Epstein outside of the island at a dinner or at a gala or in some celebrity gathering, and then the actual people who went to the island. Because I feel like the room temp people would be like, anyone who ever met him anywhere was obviously implicated in everything he did. You're convinced that Trump is withholding the files in order to trick the Democrats to force the release, and then Trump drops it and all the Democrat donors are named? I don't know. I don't know if there's like some 4D chess going on here. It just feels like a really disappointing moment overall. If he was on the list and outed as president, everything he was doing and planned would stop. Again, I like some of the stuff that he has done as president. I vote on policy, not for person. And so I voted for a lot of the policy that he would put into action when Trump became president this term. If he is on Epstein's list, I want him out, even if that would put a wrench in a lot of the other things that he has been doing that I do like. Because I don't want to be supportive of someone who is implicated in trafficking minors. That's fucked up. We survived the 2010s grape culture hysteria. We can survive a few rich assholes getting in hot water. I would like to think so.
Not going to be any context. Media doesn't care about context. So you can't do that.
That's funny.
So over and over, we've seen the same answer from the president. Not the fact that, oh, no, the Epstein files, it's a lefty conspiracy. No, actually, it's the worry that people in the files are going to have their lives destroyed by the files. That sounds a lot more like covering for the people in the files than it does covering the victims. We've heard Kash Patel and Pam Bondi talk about, oh, we got to protect the victims.
Go through it very cautiously to protect all the victims.
But if the files aren't real, how are there victims?
Re-victimize women. We're not going to put that back out there.
But when we actually hear the president talk about it, and the real reason, right, because he's ultimately the decision maker on whether this gets released, what the real reason is cited is not about victims. It is about the people, the names in the thing. So I find it disgusting. They're using the victims of Epstein as a shield for the people who are actually in these files. Now, of course, who specifically is he worried about? Well, maybe it's his friends. Maybe it's people he has dinner parties with. And of course, maybe it's him, Donald Trump, that he's worried about. The journalist Michael Wolff...
That wasn't even something like my brain... Like, I was trying to brain what that fucking guy on that news show was saying a minute ago. But yeah, like, even if some innocent people on that list are going to have to do some sort of incredible reputation defense afterwards because they only, like, met him at a gala or whatever, shouldn't you still release the list for the sake of the victims? I can't believe that there's any victim out there that's just like... Yeah, no, I just want this buried. I don't want anyone who was, raping me for years to face any sort of consequences. Let's just sweep this under the rug, bro. I'm happy at this coffee shop, Like, I can't imagine that. I can't imagine that at all.
Actually quotes Steve Bannon as saying Jeffrey Epstein was really feared in 2016 for what he knew.
I was there, and it was that
that moment. And Bannon said to Epstein, and he said this in a good humor. He said during the campaign, it would be the 2016 campaign, you, meaning Jeffrey Epstein, were the only person I was afraid of.
So that is three independent sources. You've got the Ira Rosen quote, the Michael Wolff quote, and that Mark Epstein quote, all saying that there is some type of damaging information on Trump. Two of those people specifically implying that it's also on Clinton as well. You also have the Elon Musk allegation from left field, but he doesn't source anybody, so we won't count that. Either way, I must say, I don't know for sure if Bill Clinton, Prince Andrew, Donald Trump were heavily...
Really convenient all these people are saying this after the fact and can't be contradicted. I don't think these are interviews from, like, current time. I think he's pulling these people saying, like, look, this was what was said previously.
Involved in anything nefarious or not. That is exactly why we should all demand that we open these files. But the possibility of both Democrats and Republicans being implicated in some of these files, whether they did it or not, or just knew him, may give a plausible reason for why the Epstein files have been heavily redacted this whole time. There are very powerful people.
All of this should be contextualized by the fact that CoffeeZilla has been anti-Trump since at least 2021, when he repeated the narrative that Trump caused a riot on January 6th. I mean, yeah, obviously if there's someone who dislikes Trump, it should be a bit more grain of salt. But again, that's why I keep saying, like, if the files are released and if he is implicated in the files, yes, at that point I would disavow. I just want the fucking files, man. I don't know what Trump is thinking by, like, the weird shit that he's saying, and he's like, oh, you know, nobody cares about Epstein anymore. The files aren't real. It's a Democrat hoax. Like, what the fuck are you saying? You fucking retard. Stop it. Get some help.
Involved. We've known that. The reason we've been given, of course, is that, you know, we've got to protect the victims. The real reason behind the scenes is really they're protecting the powerful people. Now, the most charitable interpretation is, as Bill O'Reilly said, it's because those people would have their lives ruined. They had nothing to do with Epstein, but we know some of them probably did. We know this from the Miami Herald because the FBI agents who searched Epstein's house found a cache of thick black binders all labeled with names that contained hundreds of naked or semi-naked photographs on CDs that Epstein stored in various places. The labels on the binders were redacted from photos because prosecutors said they were names of third parties who were not relevant to the case they are mounting against Ghislaine Maxwell. So my question...
Hold on a second.
Who were not...
So if he had binders full of hundreds of naked or semi-naked photographs, and those binders were apparently not victims and not minors, who were in those binders? Why would they redact those names?
Not relevant to the case they are mounting against Ghislaine Maxwell. So my question is, are those some of the third parties? Their names are on binders with a bunch of explicit photographs that Epstein was storing? That seems like something we should be investigating. Or
that's exactly why, when I was like trying to think of things earlier, my brain was like, what if they redacted the names of the innocent people? And then my brain was immediately like, that wouldn't work, because then it would immediately just be claimed that any names redacted aren't actually innocent. And these binders bring up a good reason for people to think that.
About the fact that since the FBI is saying there's no blackmail involved with Jeffrey Epstein, we investigate...
The binders only contained contact lists, Rolodex type information. Why were they naked? Why would you have a naked Rolodex of apparently people that aren't implicated? I just don't believe that.
The Wall Street Journal report that Jeffrey Epstein allegedly tried to extort Bill Gates over an extramarital affair, because I thought there was no blackmail involved. And my real plea to people is to not allow comments like this, these statements about partisan politics, to trick you into thinking this is some type of left versus right issue. That is the Trump play right now. I don't think it's going to work.
It's not a left versus right issue. This is like literal crimes against society at this point. It shouldn't matter. It shouldn't matter whether you're like a fucking literal committed communist or a progressive freak or just fucking regular like 90s Democrat or someone who's like center-right libertarian, or if you're a fucking dyed-in-the-wool conservative, or if you're a fucking traditionalist, or even if you're a fucking Nazi. Everyone should agree. Release the fucking files, man.
think it's a disaster. I think it's very stupid. I think people on the right are just as interested as people on the left. I think this is a universal issue, as it should be. If there are predators in the highest offices in the land, be they Democrat or Republican, we want to know about
Yes. Oh, that was a weird hard cut at the end, but yes, we want to know about. I don't care what color they are. I don't care what party they are. If they're implicated in trafficking or fucking minors, I want to know who they are. Get the feeling Trump at least wants the Golden Dome built before he releases it. You know, protection from big explosions and all that. I don't really care. This isn't left versus right. This is right versus wrong. Yeah, exactly. People on the right have always been interested. The left only just became interested when it became politically convenient. Most people he dealt with were foreigners. What about the painting of Bill Clinton in the blue dress? Wasn't it in Epstein's home? I think that was an Epstein painting. Release the floodgates. The black pill part of you thinks it would have been that way in order to cause this much bullshit? I don't know, man. Either Epstein or Podesta. Oh yeah, I forgot about Podesta. That was also a fucking creepy-ass pedo guy. It was in Epstein's New York City home. What a timeline. An assassinated blackmailing pedo peddler did more to unite America than St. Floyd. You know? As long as we don't start erecting statues to fucking Epstein, you know, please don't bring that timeline to bear.